You ever notice something so small, so seemingly harmless, that your brain almost skips it until it doesn't? It started with a sound, a soft click of a door latch around 2:30 in the morning, a kind of noise you don't pay attention to unless you're already awake. But Mark was sleepless again, a kind of night where the silence presses against your ears like static. And then came the footsteps, slow, measured, almost practiced, and they always went in the same direction. Down the hallway, past the elevator, toward the stairwell. At first, Mark told himself it was nothing. Maybe the neighbor just worked night shifts. Maybe he was a nurse, a security guard, something like that. But curiosity doesn't like maybes. It festers in the silence, waiting for you to ask the wrong question at the right time. By the third night, Mark began timing it. 2:34 a.m. Exactly. Every night. He'd never really paid much attention to the guy next door. Mid-40s, maybe older. Quiet, neatly dressed. The kind of man whose apartment always smelled like coffee and old books. They'd nodded to each other a few times, shared one awkward elevator ride that ended with a polite smile and no words. But now, Mark was watching. From the peephole, he caught a glimpse brown leather suitcase, scuffed on the corners like it had seen too much of the world. The neighbor held it with a firm grip, like he was guarding something, not carrying it, guarding it. The door would click shut, the footsteps would fade, and Mark would lie awake, his thoughts racing, chewing on theories like a dog with a bone. What could possibly demand that level of secrecy? Who leaves their apartment every night at exactly the same time? And more importantly, why? He tried not to spiral. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe the guy was just eccentric. Maybe he liked late-night walks with his suitcase. Maybe he was a magician, practicing for some strange underground performance. But then the pattern changed. One night, the suitcase was gone. And so was the neighbor. For 48 hours, his door remained shut. No movement, no footsteps, no click of the latch. Mark felt something between relief and dread, like a tension that was building up and then disappeared without a sound. But just when he was starting to forget, the routine returned. Same time, same suitcase, same footsteps. Only now Mark started hearing things. Low murmurs in the hallway, soft humming, almost like a chant. Once, he swore he heard a child's voice, but when he opened his door, nothing, just silence. And that was the night he decided to follow him. He waited by the stairwell, lights off, breath held. At 2:34 a.m. the door creaked open. Footsteps, that familiar worn suitcase. Mark moved quickly, keeping his distance, careful not to let his own steps echo. Down 3 flights, through the back exit, into the freezing night air. The man didn't look around once, didn't hesitate, just walked with calm, robotic precision through the quiet streets. Mark followed him for 12 blocks before the man turned down a narrow alley, hidden between 2 shutter shops. And then he vanished. No sound. No door opening, just gone. Mark stood there, heart pounding, scanning the alley. A dead end. No fire escapes, no open doors. He ran his hands along the brick walls, looking for cracks, secret passages, anything. Nothing. He went home shaking, but it didn't stop there. The next morning, a note was slid under Mark's door. It read, "Curiosity can be fatal." No signature, just the words typed in block letters. That should have been enough. That should have been the moment he walked away, told himself he was imagining things, convinced himself it was just a prank. But some doors, once opened, don't close so easily. The next few nights, Mark didn't sleep at all. He waited by the peephole. No movement. The neighbor was gone again. But now, Mark felt watched. Like the walls had eyes. Like every creak in the pipes was a breath behind his shoulder. He tried to look up the neighbor's name. The tenant registry listed the apartment as empty. No record. No lease. As if the man never existed. He went to the building manager, asked casually who lived next door. "Nobody's rented that unit in over a year," the man said. "You sure you're not confusing it with someone else?" But Mark had heard him, seen him. He knew he wasn't imagining it, so he did something reckless. He picked the lock. Inside, it smelled like dust and something sharp like metal or blood. The apartment was almost empty. A single chair in the center of the room. A table. No bed. No pictures. No dishes. Just one thing hanging on the wall. Photo. It was black and white, grainy and old. A group of people standing in a line, all facing forward, all wearing suits. But one face stood out. The neighbor. Only the photo was dated in 1863. Mark felt his stomach drop. He grabbed the picture and left, slammed his door, locked every lock. But that night, the footsteps returned. Only this time they stopped at Mark's door, and then came the knock. Just one. Soft, deliberate. He didn't open it. The next morning, the photo was gone. In its place, another note. "You saw what you weren't meant to. Don't look for me again." But Mark couldn't stop. He started digging. Archives, newspaper clippings, online forums. He found fragment stories about a man who appears every few decades, always with the same face, always with a suitcase. People disappear around him. Evidence vanishes. Witnesses forget. But there was a name, or maybe a title. The Keeper. Some believe he guards memories that were meant to be erased. Others think he's a collector of secrets, of souls, of time itself. Mark knew how insane it all sounded, but he also knew what he saw. And that was when the dreams began. The dreams weren't just vivid, they were invasive. They didn't feel like dreams at all, more like borrowed memories. In them, Mark stood in a vast, windowless room. The walls were lined with shelves. Each shelf held a suitcase identical to the one his neighbor carried. Some were old and worn, others pristine, but every one pulsed with a low hum like a heartbeat. He'd reach out to touch one and then wake up in a cold sweat. Same time, 2:34 a.m. It wasn't just his sleep that was disturbed. Electronics in his apartment began malfunctioning. His phone would freeze on black screens. The microwaver set itself to 2:34. The lights flickered when he thought about the neighbor. One morning, he found a suitcase outside his door. No note, just sitting there, quietly waiting. His hands trembled as he reached for it. It wasn't locked, but when he opened it, it was empty. Or so it seemed, because as soon as the latch clicked open, the hallway around him dimmed. Not physically, something in him shifted. Pull, like gravity, but emotional. He swore he heard whispers, fragments of conversations he'd never had, laughs of people he didn't know, screams. He slammed it shut and kicked it back into the hallway. But that night, it was inside his apartment, just sitting in the middle of his living room. Mark lost track of time after that. Days blurred. He stopped going to work, stopped answering calls. His apartment began to feel wrong, like it wasn't entirely his anymore. The walls felt closer, the windows darker, and the suitcase never left. He finally decided to destroy it. Drove 2 hours out of town into the woods, dug a hole, burned it, watched it crack and melt and turn to ash. He came home exhausted, relieved. For the first time in weeks, he slept. Until 2:34 a.m., the suitcase was at the foot of his bed. Only now it wasn't empty. Inside was the photo again, but something had changed. The line of people in the picture, they were all turned toward him now, every face staring straight into the camera, into him. And where his neighbor used to stand was Mark. He dropped the photo and ran to the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, tried to breathe, tried to think. His reflection stared back at him, but his eyes weren't his. That was the moment he realized the truth. The neighbor didn't disappear. He just moved into him. And now it was Mark who woke at 2:34 a.m., picked up the suitcase, and left without sound. He didn't remember doing it, but security footage proved it. Every night, same time, same expressionless face, same brown suitcase. He brought it somewhere, did something with it, but when morning came, he had no memory. The final piece clicked into place when he found the third note. You asked who I was. You should have asked what I was, because the man he followed wasn't a man. Not anymore. You was a vessel, a carrier, a living archive of things that shouldn't be remembered, regrets, secrets, forgotten timelines. And now so was Mark. I call him the Keeper for a reason, because once you open the door to forbidden knowledge, you become responsible for keeping it closed. That's the price of curiosity. So if you ever hear footsteps outside your door at 2:34 in the morning, don't follow. Don't open the door, and never touch the suitcase, because what's inside might already be a part of you. Mark stopped talking to people after that, not because he didn't want to, but because something in him changed. Words didn't come the same way. Conversations felt like echoes, like he was mimicking how people were supposed to act. And deep down, he felt like he was rotting from the inside out, not physically, but mentally. His thoughts weren't always his. His memories began rearranging themselves. Events he never lived started showing up in his dreams. Places he'd never been started feeling familiar. And sometimes, when he passed a mirror, he wouldn't recognize the man looking back. It wasn't just madness. It was transformation. Slow, quiet, designed to be invisible until it wasn't. He tried to document it. Wrote down every memory he could still trust. Dates, names, faces. But the journal would change. Pages he remembered writing were blank, or worse, were written in handwriting that wasn't his, with details that didn't make sense. He mentioned someone named Claire, or a trip to Vermont, or a son named Ellie. But Mark had no children, no partner. He'd never been to Vermont, and yet the grief he felt reading those entries, it was real. The pain of losing someone you loved, even if you never met them. That kind of sorrow doesn't lie. He started seeing others, in the street, on buses, in cafes, people just like him, same look in their eyes. Hollow, alert, as if they too carried something they couldn't put down. One of them passed by him in a bookstore, didn't say a word, just brushed his shoulder and whispered one sentence, so quietly, it felt like a thought. "You're not the first. You won't be the last." Mark turned around, but the man was gone. He tried to leave the city once, packed a bag, booked a one-way ticket, but when he arrived at the airport, every screen was blank. No flights, no staff, just static on the speakers, and a single announcement on loop: keepers must not wander. He left shaking. Every attempt to escape ended the same way: something intervened. Traffic jams that came out of nowhere, roads that looped back on themselves, dead phones, vanishing addresses. His world was becoming a cage, and he was beginning to understand why. The suitcase wasn't just an object. It was a key, but not to somewhere, to something ancient, woven through time, like a shadow no one dares name, a vault of human consciousness, of all the memories we collectively tried to bury. Guilt, cruelty, injustice, the things entire generations swore to forget. And someone had to carry it. Someone always has to carry it. It had been passed down for centuries, unwillingly, silently, like a curse that wears the mask of duty. Now it was Mark's turn, but here's the most chilling part. He accepted it, because deep inside, some part of him believed it was right, believed he deserved it. He stopped resisting, stopped locking the door, stopped fearing the suitcase, and started walking with it every night. 2:34 a.m. Without fail. No more hesitation, no more questions. Just a man with a suitcase walking into the dark. And if you're wondering why this story matters, if you're still listening, still thinking it's just fiction, ask yourself this: have you ever woken up and felt like something was missing? A memory, a name, a feeling you couldn't quite explain? Have you ever had a dream about a man in a hallway, carrying something you couldn't see but feared? Have you ever checked the time at night and seen 2:34? If so, maybe you've seen him. Maybe you're next. Some stories are meant to entertain. Others are meant to warn. This one is both. And if it ever knocks on your door, whatever you do, don't open it.